No, it doesn't work. And here's why, here's why it doesn't work. And I've been quite clear about it. You know, the criminal law, prohibition, if we're talking about criminal prohibition, in other words, criminal sanctions if you don't abide by it, only works if the vast majority of people in the society agree that what's prohibited should be prohibited. In other words, murder can be against the law, because almost everybody thinks murder should be against the law, and other crimes, sex assault, burglary, property crimes, theft. You sit down 100 people, 98 of them will say, sure, that should be against the law, and the other two you don't put on your jury. But what you can't do is enforce criminal law where a lot of people think the activity should be legal. It just doesn't work. It's too expensive, it's too difficult. You have all of the protections in the criminal system, proof beyond a reasonable doubt, everything else. And if 30, 40, 45, 50% of the people in your jury pool or in your community think that the activity you're trying to prosecute should be legal, it's not going to work. Nobody's going to report the crimes. Nobody's going to support the cops as they try to put together a case. They're not going to convict when they get on juries. So that's the problem with prohibition. Whether you like marijuana, whether you don't like marijuana, if 30, 40, 45% of the populace thinks possession of small amounts of marijuana is no big deal, then you're not going to be able to enforce it through the criminal law. It just can't work that way. You might be able to control it through zoning, through land use issues, which have a much lower threshold of legal activity, but the criminal system will not work. And you've got to be realistic about that. That's what happened with prohibition of alcohol. That's what I think is beginning to happen with prohibition of marijuana. But society has to be realistic about it. And you know, you can make the case that the drug war itself suffers from that very problem. Even though there's less acceptance of possession and use of other drugs than there is of marijuana, it's still a high enough threshold that it's very hard to enforce it. It's very expensive. It's not very efficient.